Hello, good morning, and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. We have two 80 proof American blend whiskeys from the Sazerac Company under alias names, but the Sazerac Company. Okay, first one introduced in 1904 is Old Thompson American Whiskey, a blend. %80 grain spirits, 20% straight whiskey statement, so we know it's aged at least 4 years. The straight whiskeys are. I bought this at Total Wine and More for $7.99, and it's a liter for $7.99. Okay, down to the bottom third of it. The competitor, introduced in 2019. Iron Wheel Kentucky blended whiskey, also 80 proof, but this is a 75-25 blend ratio, so it's 25% straight whiskey instead of just the minimum 20%. So they're putting it at the same level as Seagram's Seven Crown. And then there's an article on the side about Iron Wheel. Perhaps no other invention aided America's westward expansion more than the invention of the iron wheel. And then they go on all about agriculture. And by 1891, around 300,000 iron wheels per year were being manufactured for agricultural implements. And it goes on and on. All right. And on the other side, it says age 36 months. Bottled in Kentucky by the Founders Company. Bottled in Kentucky by the Glenmore Distilling. So Glenmore Distilling and the Founders Company, meaning the Sazerac Company, who owns both entities. Okay, the bottle looks familiar, doesn't it? You say that's the same bottle as Benchmark. McAfee's Benchmark, old number 8. Yeah, that's the same bottle as Ancient Age. That's the same bottle as Canadian Hunter. That's right. They use a standard Sazerac bottle. I think there's 3 standard Sazerac bottles. The cylindrical tall bottle, this one, which I call the Jack Daniel's knockoff bottle, and they use the bulb bottle. It's shaped like a bulb, almost like a cognac bottle. And you'll see 2 Stars bourbon in that, very old Barton, Hartley brandy, and so forth. And I call it the bulb bottle. Whoa. Didn't mean to hit the camera. All right. I was just trying to tap it to get the light to come on. All right. So they're both 80 proof. And they're both from Sazerac. And they're both blended whiskey. The difference is the aging, for one thing. At least 4 years on this one. Exactly 3 years on that one, it says. 20% straight whiskey. 25% straight whiskey. Ultimately, I don't think it's going to make much difference, but the price. Iron Wheel was $8.99 for the standard size bottle. So it's at Hocus Pocus Spirits in Prairieville, Louisiana. They have 2 other locations, Lake Charles, Louisiana, and Alexandria, Louisiana. But we're closest. The Prairie View location is closest to me. Lake Charles and Alexandria are hours away. Hocus Pocus is less than an hour away. All right. Normally I would just go to Hocus Pocus if I was on the way to Baton Rouge for some reason or another. That's on United States Highway 61 northbound, okay, between New Orleans and Baton Rouge, heading very close to Baton Rouge. Okay. In fact, it's the last town that you pass through before you get to Baton Rouge. Okay, they're both gold and amber, or amber golden. And when you go from Ascension Parish to East Baton Rouge Parish, you have to cross a bayou. There's a bridge, obviously, Interstate Bridge or the old U.S. Highway 61 bridge. And the bayou is called Bayou Manchac, and it connects to Lake Maurepas, which connects to Lake Pontchartrain, which connects to the Gulf of Mexico. So you could get in a little boat, little rowboat, and go all the way to Gulf of Mexico from there. And that used to be an international border, believe it or not. It was an international border between the Kingdom of Spain and the United States of America. True story. So now you just sit heading down the highway, but at one time you had to stop. They had customs, border control agents back when the U.S. used to control the border. And Spain controlled their border, so it was very interesting. And it was also one more thing. It was the boundary. It was the boundary, the border between Florida and Louisiana. Louisiana on the southeast side of the line, the bayou. A bayou is a slow-moving river, and Florida on the north side, northwest side. Many people are not aware that Florida used to stretch from Baton Rouge at the Mississippi River all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. That's right. I was born in what they call the Florida parishes because that used to belong to Florida. Just think if they had never sliced it into three pieces, how big Florida would be today, stretching from the Mississippi River across. Just makes you wonder, huh? If you ever look at a map, you'll notice that that top part of Louisiana, the lower part of Louisiana, if you take that line with a ruler and you go across, it's the same level as the top of Florida, the northern border of Florida, northern state line, because they used to connect. It used to be one continuous line, is what I'm saying. And they divided it into two provinces, West Florida and East Florida, because a little too big to control from one capital city, St. Augustine, which is more like a town, really not a city. If you ever go there, you say this was the capital city. Well, use the word loosely, city, town. Like I've been to the capital of New England, the capital of New England. That was a dominion at one time, but that didn't last. The capital of Vermont and New Hampshire, well, those are not cities as you think of a city or I think of a city. They're just towns that happen to be the capital. Like a lot of places. Okay, this smells like corn. And a little bit of oak. So if you gave this to someone blind and you just said, what do you think this is? And they smelled it, it would be likely that they would say bourbon. Oh, what is this light bourbon? They might say light bourbon or just bourbon. Or if they're really dialed in on whiskey types, they might say, oh, American blended whiskey, probably from Kentucky, Now, the reason they say American blended and not Kentucky blended whiskey is because it could be from other states. In other words, part of the ingredient, some of the whiskeys in this blend could be from other states. If it's Kentucky whiskey, it has to all be from Kentucky, okay? Not the ingredients, but the whiskey has to be distilled, aged, and bottled in Kentucky. So, not bottled, that's right, but distilled and aged in Kentucky. So this says American blended whiskey, which is telling you what? Some of it is not from Kentucky, probably coming across the river from Indiana. no big deal, but that's the story. Now, Iron Wheel, on the other hand, is specific, made in Kentucky, from the land to the bottle. So they're emphasizing made with American grown corn, okay? From the land to the bottle, made in Kentucky, Kentucky blended whiskey, distilled, aged, and bottled in Kentucky. So they're kind of a triple reinforced label, triple reinforced. They want you to know Kentucky, Kentucky, Kentucky. Get it? Abraham Lincoln, with his atheistic ways, and not to mention his criminal activity, but he war crime, being a war criminal and all that. But he made a statement which is indicative of his theology or his zero amount of it. But he says, "I hope God is on our side, but I have to have Kentucky." Meaning he could not afford for Kentucky to secede from the United States. And if you remember, when the war first started, when he first started the war, well, let's be accurate, when he instigated the war, Kentucky declared neutrality. They basically said, we're neutral, we're not taking sides, which would be almost like an open violation of their status as a state, for a state to declare neutrality in a war that the Union was in. But he didn't challenge him on that. He just like pretended he didn't hear him say that. Like he wasn't aware of that statement. Because if he made any moves to stop it, they would immediately secede, and then he would lose. So he was a cagey little character. Cagey character. All right. Or a better word would be insidious. But anyway, back to this. Talking about Kentucky, he was born in Kentucky. So was the president, Jefferson Davis. Okay. Max Walt. Good morning, Ron. Cheers. Cheers to you, Max Walt, and the Russian Federation. Okay. So history, geography, whiskey production methods, they all come into play in these videos. Isn't it interesting how it all works? So you can learn about history and geography by talking about whiskey production, and you can learn about history and geography by talking about where you bought the products, the different liquor stores. It doesn't have to just be like you're like a machine or a robot, like some video reviewers, it's like, now I'm going to review this product. It's blah. Here's what it smells like. Here's what it tastes like. Here's what the mouth feels. Here's how it finishes. Da 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 da. Da, 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 and then they do another product, and it's the same video. It's like monotonous, in other words. Now you might say, but they do a great job reviewing it. They're on point. They know what they're talking about. No dispute there. I'm subscribed to the channel, so I ought to know. I watch all the videos, but that are applicable, products I've had. But it's sort of like it's like there's only one focus. It's like, and I'll start to say, you don't think about anything else ever? Like that's all you think about? I mean, I'm not gonna say I don't think about liquor, wine, and beer often. That's a hobby, so constantly I'm dealing with it, looking up stuff, and I'm probably oversaturated in it too. So I'll be the first to admit. So, but that's not the only thing. It's not like I'm totally, I would say, no, it's not obsessed, because obsessed means you only think about that. But I'm not. But I try to look at sports, deal with that, deal with history, geography, music, and all. So you try to spread your interest areas around, or at least I do. I'm not bragging on myself. I'm just telling you what I do. Okay, the aroma over here. Yeah, it's similar, but it doesn't have that as much of a wood note, which I'm thinking it must be less straight bourbon, which means it must be Old Thompson. Oh, and Old Thompson was a real name. It was started by a guy named Thompson, and you could read about it. But as with many of these little companies, it came under control of somebody else, and then and then, under control of Glenmore. And then when Glenmore Distilling got bought by Sazerac, well, common sense is under the control of Sazerac. Bad aromas. Nah, I wouldn't say so. It smell fine. It smell like generalized, ordinary, regular old whiskey. Should you be out on a search for these? I wouldn't think so. In fact, I wasn't out on a search for either one of them. I just saw Old Thompson at Total Wine for $7.99, and I said, I'm going to get that one day. So I was going down there again one day, and I made a specific stop to get. I said, I'm going to get it before the price goes up, and I got it, and then the price did go up pretty soon after. Iron Wheel, I wasn't looking for anything. I was just going to Hocus Pocus to see what they had. I said, let me go see what they got. Looking around, I see Iron Wheel. I was leaving. I had already got my stuff, and I was walking out or getting ready to check out, and I saw Iron Wheel. I said, ooh. I could tell it was Sazerac just by the bottle, so I bought it. Couldn't pass up $8.99, I'm glad I bought it. Okay, let's go with the taste. Cheers. See these products? They'll be creamy. They're kind of creamy in a way, but I think the creaminess is coming from the bourbon. The rest of it is like straight ethanol, which is like just a corn alcohol flavor, because that's what it is. It's unaged corn distillate. They add water to it to bring it down to 80 proof. That's it. Simple. They sell it in an undiluted version. You can buy it undiluted, 190 proof. It's called diesel. Sazerac makes it. They sell it diesel. Luxco sells one version of their own distillate called Gem Clear. Gem Clear. Gem. How you say that? Gem. 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 In the South, people have trouble telling an I from an E, so they'll make it sound like they're saying Jim, like Jim Bowie or Jim Jones, but it's supposed to be Gem. They'll even say eggs. I'll hear people saying eggs, AIGS, eggs. I say it's not eggs. Or they'll say Cincinnati Bengals, or I was watching the Bengals, but like it's Bingles, but it's Bengals, Bengals. All right. Don't even get me started on how to pronounce DOG. All right. Because I can't do it. This one's not as creamy now. I gotta take more sips. I'm starting to think they're not quite the same. Well, I mean, we know they're not quite the same because they're different, as I described earlier in the video. Oh man, this thing here is just too much cornbread. And when I say cornbread, I mean corn spirits. Nothing unusual, because when I first tried Beam's 8-Star years ago, my first whiskey video ever, it tasted very similar to this. Honestly, I don't think I'd be able to tell this apart from Beam's 8-Star. I didn't know much about whiskey then. I don't know a whole lot about it now, but some guy he went away, that troll, but he was like, you don't know good whiskey, what's wrong with you? And I was like, well, first of all, doesn't everybody know that Beam's 8-Star is cheap? It's $7.99 a bottle, which you thought it was expensive. But he was just out there to go after me for some mental illness on his part, I guess. But it's like you telling people what they know already. Everybody knows it's cheap by virtue of the price point, which is cheap. I'm not going to sit there and say a product is bad because some viewer demands I say it's bad. Just like I'm not going to say something's good because a viewer demands that I say it's good. Well, well, I like it. Okay, well, good. Well, I don't think it's that great. I'm sorry. That's why people do reviews. They don't agree. They don't always agree. Okay. Now, this one has less of a corn spirits flavor, but you know what I mean? But I don't mean to say it that way. I'm speaking incorrectly. But what I'm trying to say, or what am I saying? Has confusing myself, but I know what I'm trying to say. um, so redaction. All right. The I think the Iron Wheel has more of that grain spirits flavor because when I did the solo review, I noticed that. But it should have less of that, should it? Because it's 25% straight whiskey, and this one's only 20%. But you say, yeah, but it might depend on the straight whiskey. They might be using a much higher boldness in the flavor. You know what I mean? They might be using a whiskey with a much bolder flavor here, and they might be using 25%, but it's a whiskey that's very mild, or even wheated bourbon, something like that. Yeah. In either case, it's probably cast off quality products, meaning that it might be some Buffalo Trace that didn't come out right, according to Sazerac's quality assurance standards. Maybe it's some Weller that didn't come out right. Maybe it's some Very Old Barton that didn't come out right. Maybe it's some Ancient Age that didn't come out right. Maybe it's some, Old Charter that didn't come out. Well, whatever it is, they're not going to dump it out unless it's totally unpalatable, rancid, but I don't believe that happens. They'll just blend it into these things, and nobody's going to complain because you only pay $7.99 for a liter. So you say, I got to get my drinking on. I don't get that whole point, though. I don't know why you're buying blended whiskey for $7.99 a liter if you just got to get your drink on. Why you wouldn't just pay, and you don't care about the quality, you're just going to mix it with, like I did, that Tahitian treat. why just buy the cheapest thing you could find? And I found Taro Gold Rum from Mexico at Total Wine and More Thursday, and it was $7.49 for a handle. Yeah, you heard me right. $7.49 for a handle. Does it taste great? Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't because it's $7.49 a handle. But if you're going to submerge it in some kind of soft drink or juice, you say you're not going to mix it with V8. You're probably going to mix it with Great Value since you want to go so low on the price point. Fine, you take Great Value tomato drink juice and you mix it with the taro rum. Oh, I guess it'll help you get your drink on. Now, I think this is the Iron Wheel, and I think the Old Thompson's better. So the price is about the same, $7.99 a liter, $8.99 a regular soft. But I think the Old Thompson is a better product, assuming I have it correct. And I don't want to assume that, really, because I don't know for sure. But there's a feeling I get when I look to the west, and I think this is the Iron Wheel. Oh, no, it's the Old Thompson. How I feel played. I do feel played by my own mentality because going by recollection, I really truly thought it was the Iron Wheel that had that heavy grain spirits thing. But no, actually, it's the Old Thompson has the heavy grain spirits. And the Iron Wheel has more of an authentic bourbon flavor, which makes sense because it's a higher percentage of it, 25% versus 20. So it just goes to show you sometimes you can get these wrong. And I did. And it could keep happening. Hope it doesn't, but it could. All right, that's it. I'm going to watch the news. So the winner is Iron Wheel, but I couldn't tell them apart. And I'm a little embarrassed, but I'll get over it. We'll be back tomorrow for another Dawn Busters Taste Challenge.